So, Boots, when we hear about the epics of the 1950s and 60s, it'll say 10 years in the making. But this was 10 years in the making, and you were going to make it into a song first, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't remember that at the time, but looking back recently in some of my old notebooks, because that's what I do when I don't have anything to write. I'm like, oh, maybe an old idea I can steal for myself. And I found that in like 2001, I had written a single line that was a concept for a song that was you know, me as a telemarketer selling slaves. And so, I mean, that's the kind of, in a
Good
way,
argument
it's
for
even
not throwing anything
crazier
away.
than the movie. But yeah, so obvious, I didn't remember that that's the first where the idea was. But then later in 2011, I sat down to actually start writing it.
For the producers, for Nina and for Charles and for George, each of you tries to bring into mainstream and into films aspects of life, people, voices that would not be heard otherwise. So tell us about your experience of this film coming to you and what your aha moment was.
My aha moment is I don't think there's an actual aha moment. Is to always seeking filmmakers of color that has a unique voice, something that we haven't seen in the marketplace. So that's what drew me and Forrest Whitaker to it.
And you were a producer of Fruitvale Station, too.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Charles, what was your epiphany about this?
Well, I was fortunate to meet this man, Boots Riley, at one of the Sundance Labs. And I was just captivated by his vision for this project. And then I also wanted to be in business with this woman right here because I knew what a great producer she was. So I said, hey, if I had an opportunity to work with the two of them, then we were definitely on board.
And George, you do entertainment law as well.
Yeah, I'm based in San Francisco, and every year I host a karaoke holiday contest. And Boots showed up. And I was aware of who he was because of the coup and his activism and stuff. And I was actually a little intimidated. I thought he'd be very serious. But he sang "Still Rock and Roll to Me" by Billy Joel, and he won the most inspirational trophy. And while he's walking out the door, he handed me the script, and I was sold.
Lakeith, you were in Get Out, and you think, how can I match that? What can I look for? How did they approach you with this script and say, this is your next big thing?
Boots put it very plainly to me. You did it in Get Out, do it again. No. No.
That's quite
Get Out
a
wasn't
sales
even
pitch.
out.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, Get Out wasn't even out. It was just I was at Sundance, dancing around in the sun, and there was a strange man with an afro and mutton chops who was following me around with some
Wait, was
papers
this
in
me?
his hand.
Oh, it was Boots. Sorry,
And,
go ahead.
And once I took the pages from him and read it, I realized after a while that this was something that was very special and could be an opportunity to explore a character that I hadn't explored before and tell a story that I hadn't seen been told before. And so I was very excited at the opportunity that we might be able to make something out of this crazy thing. I'd been looking for an opportunity to sort of mix it up and challenge myself and hopefully audiences. And so I thought this was a great opportunity also to have conversations about difficult topics and difficult things to talk about. Sometimes it's easier to come up with a disposition about a thing when you're seeing it through art.
Terry Crews, you're the king of all media. You can do anything you want. So
Anything.
So what?
All media. Yes. I like that.
I hope we got a shot of that. You keep at it. I'll come right back to you, Patton. So Terry, how were you approached for this role, and did you
Wow.
take a lot of persuading?
First of all, I have to give it up to Nina Bongiovi because we met at I was introduced to her, and she was so excited about this project. She said, "I got this movie you won't believe, Boots Riley," and I knew Boots, and I also had met Lakeith like a year and a half, 2 years earlier, and I said, "Man, I want to work with you," because I've always been a big fan. But her energy, her love, She was like, you gotta see this, you gotta. And I said, okay, okay. I looked at it and I was like, what in the world? What? And I kept flipping pages like, oh, what? And when I got to the end, I would have paid Boots to be in the movie. Because I said, there's no way. I said, when do I show up? I will do it for free, whatever. I'll hand out stuff. I'll do security. We got to make sure this gets done. And then all the other names started coming in. I didn't even know about all the other giant names that were in here. But again, with her energy and her love for it, I mean, that's what a producer's all about. And then Lakeith being that catalyst who I knew would be the future of what this town is all about. This man has got so much coming. It's incredible.
Patton Oswalt, when did you come on board as the voice of the mysterious man in the bowler hat and the Wyatt Earp mustache?
I feel like I came on board years ago because
Yeah.
you let me read the screenplay years ago, and I could. The screenplay, it's the same quality when I read it as listening to The Coup, which is The Coup. My writing partner, I always said it's the worst music to write to because you're constantly going, wait, rewind that. What the hell? Like it takes you out of whatever you're working on. It's so dense and amazing. And the script, the first time you showed it to me, I kept stopping and going, what in the? I would go back, which I've always heard is a script should not have that quality, but I was. And so I'm actually, one thing that makes me wonder, because I remember reading going, I just want to see this movie just to see if he can pull these visuals off. I remember reading and going, how is he going to shoot what he's describing? So that is what, so I just said, I remember telling you, I don't care what you want me to do in this movie. If you ever get this made, I'm in. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. So.
And Patton came on when there was no producers yet, no money, no nothing, and I definitely used his name to the fullest.
This film has elements of fable. It's political parody in some ways. Was it the film you started out with? How much did it change?
When I started out, I was like, I know I'm going to make a film that will be in the telemarketing world, and I know that there's going to be a struggle that he has to decide what side he's on. I knew that. I knew the first scene because that's my friend Rob Ebo. That's how he always got his jobs, and he never got caught. And then, and I knew the compliment argument scene because that happened to my little brother some years ago, and I was always like, I'm gonna put that in a movie one day. And so that's all I knew. And then the rest, I took the journey with Cassius. I mean, I had things that I wanted to do. I wanted there to be a character, a black character that wasn't only thinking about survival and, how to make it through the jungle of other black people like so many movies are. I wanted it to be what humans do, someone that thinks about themselves in the context of time and space and is thinking about their existence, because I think that's what all humans do. And for me, having that in there, I knew that would make him more human and understandable. And but as I went on, so for me, a lot of my work, even with music, has been fighting cliche. And I realize that we lean towards cliche all the time because we've seen so many movies and heard so many songs that it's hard to parse out what our real experience is in life from what we saw in a movie. So for instance, I've never been to Delhi in India. I have a clear picture in my head of Delhi with the transportation and the clothing and what the streets look like. I haven't even seen a documentary about Delhi. All that stuff is from James Bond movies or something like that. And so if I were to sit down and write a scene happening in Delhi, it would have not only cliches, but probably very racist things that, have to do with that. And so when I'm writing a scene, it's all about me trying to, or anything, it's me trying to parse out what I believe based on my own experience, and it's me interrogating myself, and based on the things that I believe that aren't from, another movie. So I'm, for me, a lot of that has to do with my larger ideas about the world, and So how do you have a philosophical idea injected into a scene? Do you have somebody say, well, message, message, message? No, hopefully not. And then you can come up with all sorts of contrivances, but what I found, and this is how the weird shit started getting in there, was like, I found that the way that the way that worked to put those ideas in order to keep it more real in my viewpoint from my experience, was to bend the reality of the world in the movie. And so I didn't set out to make something weird and stuff like that, but it was needed. I needed the Equisapiens there for him to see what he was, because I had written the rap performance, and I thought that was going to be the thing for him to see himself. But I was like, that doesn't make sense that's enough. There's slavery going on, and he's selling slaves, and everybody accepts all of that. So all of these things were stuff that was needed. It had to feel real to me. So that's the part that changed. The other, there were other things that changed, especially in the Sundance Labs, but mainly around me making him take ownership of his choices.
The code switching elements of this are familiar to you, but they may be really new to an audience. The idea that, oh my God, you have to speak in a different voice to get different groups to listen to you. So as you developed your own characters, what did you draw on?
I don't think it's that unfamiliar if you think about it. Code switching is something that we all do to survive in many forms and fashions, and I think the white voice here could be representative of a lot of different things, not simply just a voice in the way that it sounds over the phone, but how we make ourselves look to others, how we dress ourselves up in pretty little things, and things we do to make ourselves more palatable, particularly in the workplace. And I think everyone is involved in that game to one level or another, because it's important to be, and it's has been important for our survival for years to have that. So if you look at it more as a metaphor, everyone is experiencing that to some degree. So I think it's a universal theme, and so I really tried to pay less attention to the implications behind it, more attention to just the idea and the ambition that the character was experiencing, and trying to bring about change in his life by any means necessary, thereby sometimes through that overlooking sometimes friends and family and loved ones in the process.
And for Terry?
No, I agree with Lakeith in that it's definitely, the code switching is something that we all have done in some way, form, or fashion. But I think, to define it a little bit better, sometimes code switching sounds like it's some sort of farce or some sort of game. I think, for me, it's always
survival, right?
Well,
Survival
just
tool?
trying to trick someone into selling something or whatever. That's how I've always saw code switching being. I always looked at it as being bilingual, just simply because I remember being a kid and going over my white friends' houses, and I knew how they lived already, simply because everything was white. The media, the TV shows. I watched the Brady Bunch. I knew what it was like. But then when they come over my house, they didn't understand what we were saying. They had no clue. And they would tell me, what did that mean? What's that? You get 50 million questions from your white friends when they come to your house, and you realize, oh, they don't know what I'm talking about. So I have to speak their language all the time. If I'm outside, I have to speak your language. But there was a lot of times there was a total unwillingness for them to learn mine. And so when you're talking about code switching, it's about survival in a lot of ways.
Thank you, everybody. Please thank the panel.